Good morning. I'm Hassan Giordano, and this is your DMV Daily Dose for Friday, January 31st, 2020.
It's currently cloudy and 34 degrees in Baltimore. Today's high will be 44 degrees, and the low will be 32.
Last night, the number 15 Terps, led by senior guard Anthony Cowan Jr. and sophomore forward Jalen Smith, beat the number 18 Iowa Hawkeyes 82-72 for their fourth straight victory. With Cowan scoring a career-high 31 points, passing Walt Williams for 12th on the school's all-time scoring list, Maryland, who is 17-4 and 7-3 in the Big Ten, stopped the five-game winning streak of those Iowa Hawkeyes, who started with its win over the Maryland Terps. Now, Cohen also had 6 assists and 6 rebounds. WBAL's Kate Amara is reporting on former Baltimore Mayor Sheila Dixon, who released her crime reduction plan yesterday, which includes new ideas and some strategies residents might recognize. The overall theme is effective management and collaboration. Dixon, a candidate for mayor in 2020, said it's time for every stakeholder to get out of their silo and check their egos at the door. Dixon, who was mayor from 2007 to 2010, lowered crime to historic rates in Baltimore in both homicides and quality of life crimes, while fatal and non-fatal shootings dropped 14%. If voters send Dixon back to City Hall, she has promised on day one to deploy more police on patrol in the communities. She said that she would immediately disband all plainclothes units and miscellaneous task force and reassign those officers to patrol duties, keeping them there until staffing hits the minimum level required. Dixon's 13-page plan also calls for more training for supervisors and rank-and-file officers. She would impose a 5-year wait for officers to take the sergeant's test instead of the current 3-year wait. If elected, she'd decentralize investigative units and move those efforts out of headquarters and into the community. Quote, community leaders are going to help determine what happens in their neighborhood with police by creating a comprehensive plan for their district commander, Dixon said. Now, in Dixon's strategy, the Baltimore Police Department's mission will be supplemented in various ways that includes hiring civilians and creating new part-time contract positions to get retired police back on the job at least 10 days a month. She would also look to faith-based entities to serve as so-called safe havens, and she would seek to collaborate with the FBI, the courts, the Maryland State Police, the Maryland Transit Administration, and university police forces, as well as reinstituting the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. Quote, everybody has to be at the table, Dixon said. We have to have the state's attorney, the courts, parole and probation, the state folks, and everybody to be able to track these most violent repeat offenders. We have to get the data and be able to look at each day and say, what are we doing to deal with what's happening here in the city of Baltimore? Now, Maryland Matters' Josh Kersey was reporting as Maryland policymakers attempt to combat political corruption, a Senate committee considered legislation that would expand the state's definition of a public official and theoretically make it easier for the state prosecutor's office to initiate investigations. Senate Bill 200, proposed by the Office of the State Prosecutor, will potentially put more public officials under scrutiny for corruption investigations and will broaden the prosecutor's authority. Quote, we believe that recent events have shown that these adjustments are important, said Charlton Howard III, who recently took over as state prosecutor and told the Senate Judicial Proceedings Committee. Now, the Office of the State Prosecutor, a small agency created in the 1970s, was set up to investigate and prosecute corruption cases in the state and local governments and politics that do not rise to the level of federal crimes. Now, the office investigates election law and campaign finance violations, ethics infractions, misconduct in office, and violation of state bribery laws, among other things. Recent prosecutor actions include securing a guilty plea from a former Baltimore police chief who sent misleading information to state authorities about an officer he planned to hire, an indictment of former Baltimore Mayor Catherine Pugh on perjury charges, the conviction of then District Heights Mayor Eddie Martin for misconduct in office, and a guilty plea from a Baltimore City school official for stealing school district funds. This bill, introduced on behalf of the OSP, would expand the meaning of public official to include all those defined as such under the Maryland Public Ethics Law. Essentially, anyone who will file an annual financial disclosure form with the State Ethics Commission. Now, the bill would create a new statute to mandate a 10-year sentence for certain acts of official wrongdoing, and perhaps more significantly, would lift a 2-year statute of limitations on the prosecutor's ability to invest allegations of public corruption. Speaking of convicted lawmakers, the Baltimore Sun's Luke Broadwater is reporting that the University of Maryland medical system is seeking to recover hundreds of thousands of dollars paid to disgraced former Baltimore Mayor Catherine Pugh for her Healthy Holly books. Top officials of the hospital network testified Thursday in Annapolis. Quote, "We have recovered $100,000 of the $500,000 paid out to Mayor Pugh," said James C. Chip DePaula Jr., the new chairman of the system's board. He told the House of Delegates Health and Government Operations Committee that we are working with the U.S. prosecutors to recover the balance. Now, Pugh, who resigned as mayor last spring as the book scandal unfolded, has since pleaded guilty to conspiracy and tax evasion charges and awaits sentencing on February 27th. DePaula and Dr. Mohan Santha, the system's new CEO, appeared before the House committee Thursday afternoon, seeking to assure lawmakers that the state's largest hospital network is undergoing reforms after last year's high-profile self-dealing scandal, a scandal that Mr. Broadwater and the Baltimore Sun helped expose. Now, Broadwater and the Sun's Pamela Wood are reporting on the Maryland General Assembly, who voted Thursday to override 5 bills vetoed by Governor Larry Hogan, including a measure that prohibits employers from asking prospective employees about any criminal history on job applications. It was the latest example of the democratically controlled legislature flexing its muscle over the Republican governor. Now, lawmakers voted largely along party lines, 31-15 in the state Senate and 95-43 in the House of Delegates, to override Hogan's vetoes of legislation to expand the state's DREAM Act, which allows students who are undocumented immigrants to pay in-state tuition rates for college and to abolish a handgun permit review board. The board had a history of overruling Maryland state police decisions, which resulted in more people legally carrying handguns. Now, it takes 29 votes in the Senate to override a veto and 85 votes in the House. State Senator Jill Carter, a Baltimore Democrat who is running to be your next United States Congresswoman for the 7th Congressional District, was the lead sponsor of the Ban the Box legislation, which will limit when employers can discuss a job applicant's criminal record. Now, Carter spoke Thursday in favor of the veto override, arguing it's important to help people re-enter in the workforce after time spent in prison or jail. If an ex-offender isn't ruled out before an interview, he or she has a better chance to land a job and contribute to society, Carter said. Now, lawmakers opted not to vote to override 3 of Hogan's vetoes, including a bill that would have required 2-person crews on freight trains passing through the state, and legislation that would have put additional restrictions and reporting requirements on the governor's appointment powers. I'm your man, Mr. Politics, and this has been your DMV Daily Dose for Friday, January 31st, 2020. For more information on the articles that I've mentioned, just go on over to that website at www.dmvdaily.news.